Welcome everyone. Today we are going to travel back in time, far back, to a world of tall golden grass, ancient forests, and animals who could teach us things we still need to learn. This is the story of the lion and the mouse, and why even the smallest act of kindness can change everything. Long ago, in a forest where the trees whispered secrets to one another in the wind, there lived a great lion. His name was Kale, and he was the king of all the animals in that land. Kale had a mane as thick and dark as a storm cloud. His golden eyes could see through the shadows of the forest like two burning lanterns. When he roared, the birds flew from their branches and the earth itself seemed to tremble. Every animal in the forest knew one rule: do not disturb the lion while he sleeps. One warm afternoon, Kale lay stretched out beneath an old fig tree. The sun had made him heavy and slow. The smell of dry grass and warm earth filled the air around him. His great chest rose and fell, slowly, peacefully. He was deeply, completely asleep. Now, not far away, a small brown mouse named Pip was searching for food. Pip was quick and clever, with bright little black eyes and a twitching pink nose that never stopped moving. He darted between roots and stones, sniffing here, sniffing there. Then he made a terrible mistake. Pip ran straight across the lion's enormous paw. Kale's golden eyes opened instantly. One massive paw slammed down, and Pip found himself trapped, pinned to the ground, unable to move, staring up at the largest face he had ever seen in his short life. "Well," said Kale, his voice low and rumbling like distant thunder. "What do we have here?" Pip's tiny heart was beating so fast it felt like a small drum. His legs were shaking. But Pip was clever, and even in his fear, his mind was working. "Please, great king," Pip squeaked. "Please do not eat me. I am so small, I would not even fill one of your teeth. I am not worth your time." Kale stared at the tiny creature. He was not hungry. He had eaten well that morning. And something about the mouse's small, trembling voice made him feel strangely amused. "You are right," Kale said slowly. "You are very small." He lifted his paw. Pip did not wait. He ran, faster than he had ever run before, disappearing into the tall grass in seconds. But before he vanished completely, he stopped and turned back. His little voice carried through the warm air like a tiny bell. "Thank you, great king. You will not regret this. One day, I promise, I will repay you." Kale watched the spot where the mouse had disappeared. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. It was a deep, rolling laugh that shook the leaves above him. The idea of a tiny mouse repaying a great lion, the king of all animals, was so funny to him that he could not help himself. "A mouse," he said to himself, still smiling as he closed his eyes again, "repay a lion. How perfectly ridiculous." And he went back to sleep. The days passed. The forest moved through its seasons. The rains came and went. The grass grew tall, then dry, then tall again. Kale continued to rule his land with power and pride, and the little mouse Pip continued his small, busy life among the roots and stones. Then one morning, everything changed. Kale had gone deeper into the forest than usual, following the smell of water to a cool stream. He moved quietly through the trees, his great paws silent on the soft ground. He did not see the net. Hunters, men from a village beyond the forest, had stretched a thick rope net between the trees near the stream. They had worked for hours in the darkness before dawn, tying strong knots, pulling the ropes tight, and hiding the edges under leaves and branches. Kale walked straight into it. The net fell over him instantly. He roared and twisted, but the more he moved, the tighter the ropes pulled around him. He clawed at the thick cords with his powerful paws, but the hunters had chosen their rope well. It was heavy, rough, and strong. For the first time in his life, Kale was helpless. He roared again and again, his voice filling the forest, bouncing off the trees and rising into the sky. Birds scattered in every direction. Small animals ran and hid. The sound of his roaring was desperate now, not the roar of a king, but the cry of a prisoner. The ropes cut into his skin. The net pressed his great mane against his face. He could smell the men, their fires, their food, their fear mixed with excitement, somewhere not far away. He knew they would come soon. For a long moment, the forest was silent except for Kale's heavy, exhausted breathing. Then something impossible happened. A tiny voice spoke from somewhere near his left paw. "King Kale. It is me. Pip. Do not move, I am going to help you." Kale turned his great golden eyes downward. There, sitting beside the thick rope net, was the small brown mouse. His bright black eyes were focused and serious. His little pink nose was twitching fast. "Pip," Kale said quietly. His voice was tired. "There is nothing you can do. These ropes are too strong." "Do not tell me what I cannot do," said Pip. And he began to chew. His small sharp teeth worked quickly, cutting through one fiber at a time. The rope was thick, far thicker than anything Pip had ever chewed through before. But he did not stop. He moved to the next section of rope, then the next, his jaws working fast and steady. Kale watched in silence. He could still smell the hunters. He could hear distant voices now, moving closer through the trees. His heart was heavy with fear, but he kept still, just as Pip had told him. The minutes felt like hours. Then, with a sound like a dry branch snapping, the first section of rope broke apart. Pip moved immediately to the next section. Then the next. The net began to loosen. Kale felt the ropes shift around him. He pushed gently against the net, testing it. Another section broke. Then another. With one powerful movement, Kale pushed his great body upward. The weakened net tore open around him. He stepped free, shaking the broken ropes from his mane, and stood tall in the morning light. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of the hunters was closer now, perhaps just a few minutes away. Kale lowered his great head until his golden eyes were level with the small mouse sitting on the forest floor. "Pip," he said. His voice was quiet and full of something that had not been there before. "You saved my life." Pip looked up at the lion, this enormous, powerful, golden creature, and gave a small nod. "I told you I would repay you," Pip said simply. "A promise is a promise." Kale was silent for a moment. He thought of the day he had laughed at this tiny mouse. He thought of how ridiculous he had found the idea that something so small could ever help something so large. He had been wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to know something important, something that makes this story more than just a tale about animals in a forest. Kale had the power to crush Pip that first day. He had the strength, the size, the authority. No one would have questioned him. But he chose mercy instead, not because he expected anything in return, but simply because it cost him nothing and meant everything to the mouse. And that small act, that moment of unexpected kindness from the most powerful creature in the forest, was the seed of something that would later save his life. The hunters arrived at the stream minutes later. They found their net torn and empty on the ground. They searched the area, confused and frustrated, but found no sign of the great lion. Eventually, they packed up their ropes and walked back through the trees, shaking their heads. Kale watched them go from a safe distance, hidden in the shadows of the tall grass. Beside him, barely visible in the thick green blades, sat Pip. They stayed there together until the sounds of the hunters had completely disappeared. Then Kale spoke. "I laughed at you," he said. "When you said you would repay me. I thought it was impossible. I thought you were too small to matter." Pip was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Many great things are done by small hands, King Kale. The question is not how big you are. The question is whether you show up when you are needed." Kale looked at the mouse for a long time. "You are wiser than you look," he said at last. Pip's whiskers twitched. "Most things are," he replied. From that day on, something changed in the forest. Kale still ruled with power and strength, that never changed. But he began to see the world differently. He noticed the small things. The tiny birds that cleaned insects from the backs of the larger animals. The ants that moved seeds across the ground, planting tomorrow's trees without knowing it. The little creatures that worked quietly in the shadows, doing things that no one celebrated, but that kept the whole forest alive. And whenever Kale passed through the part of the forest where Pip lived, he would slow his great steps, and Pip would appear from somewhere among the roots, and they would walk together for a while, the largest animal in the forest and the smallest, in a friendship that no one who had not seen it would ever have believed possible. The story of the lion and the mouse has been told for thousands of years. Aesop wrote it down long ago, but the truth inside it is older than any written words. We live in a world that celebrates size. We celebrate power, wealth, fame, and influence. We are taught to measure our importance by how much we have, how high we have risen, how many people know our name. But this story asks us a different question. What if the most important thing you ever do is something small? What if the kindness you show today, to someone who cannot repay you, to someone the world considers unimportant, is the very thing that saves you tomorrow? We never know which small act will matter. We never know which moment of kindness will come back to us. We never know which person we treat with respect, even when we do not have to, will one day be the one who cuts through the ropes that bind us. Kale did not show mercy to Pip because he was calculating. He did not think, perhaps this mouse will be useful to me someday. He simply chose kindness in a moment when cruelty would have cost him nothing. That is the purest kind of goodness, the kind that asks for nothing in return. And Pip did not help Kale because he was afraid of the lion. Pip had escaped. He was safe. He could have kept running and never looked back. But he had made a promise, and he kept it, not because he had to, but because that is who he was. That is the purest kind of loyalty, the kind that shows up even when it is difficult. So here is the question this story leaves us with: think of the people in your life who seem small, the ones the world overlooks, the ones with no obvious power or status or influence. How do you treat them? Do you rush past them? Do you dismiss them? Or do you stop, even for a moment, and offer something, a kind word, a small help, a moment of genuine attention? Because the truth is this, we are all sometimes the lion, and we are all sometimes the mouse. We all have moments of power, and we all have moments of helplessness. The way we act in both of those moments, that is what defines us. The forest still whispers its secrets. And if you listen carefully, this is what it says: no act of kindness is ever too small. No creature is ever too small to matter. And the thread of goodness you send out into the world today may be the very thread that holds you together tomorrow.